Hello, everybody. We have Prakhar Gupta, the founder, owner, president of the YouTube channel Prakhar Ki Pravachan. And now he's an author too, I think. How many books, Prakhar?
One book yet.
One book. So, sorry, he has many courses and now he has released one book. Let me show that book also. Don't Shut Up. And actually, I'm reading this book. Some of the topics I was interested in. So, इस book के बारे में बात करेंगे और भी बहुत सारे सवाल हैं. And really looking forward to this conversation. So, welcome, Prakhar.
Bro, thank you so much. I've enjoyed every single conversation I've had with you. And I am absolutely a fan of your open-endedness, which is very rare for people. People, by the time they're our age, start to consolidate their worldviews. And I think that is such a problem because that is a limiter to growth overall. This is something I struggle with in my personal quarters as well. When I'm by myself, I keep wondering, where is it that there is calcification in the way that I look at the world? Where is it that I've consolidated, needlessly locked in place things that I thought? And it's very difficult, particularly being on the internet and being somewhat popular, to then re-update. It is a hypothesis I work with, which is that once you get famous, you get stuck at that age. If you get famous at 26, you're 26 forever. And I don't want to be that. So,
I think that's why I would want to be famous for changing my mind for the better. So because if you get famous for that, then it's just easier to continue that, right? Because and I definitely जो लोग कहते हैं ना कि यार वो पुरानी चीजें दिखाकर कि अरे तो 3 साल पहले तो ये बोलता था and now you're talking about this, मैं कहा you should be proud of that, right? कि somebody changed their mind as opposed to कि हाँ वो मैं 10 साल पहले जैसे था, I'm just the same person. So yeah,
right. But there is a certain virtue to that, क्योंकि कई बार लोग dishonestly अपना mind change करते हैं convenience के लिए कि आज मेरे लिए ये बनता है सही. But largely it is a virtue to be able to change your mind with courage.
Yeah, you should have an explanation for it, right? You should be able to argue why that position was bad and now why your new position is better. And if it's just you're doing this for the motive, let's say जो political parties करती हैं कि वो महागठबंधन इधर से उधर जाता है and then suddenly उनका पूरा philosophy change हो जाता है. Of course, that's going to be criticized. But if you can explain कि why you updated it, that's what that's the real virtue. So yeah, I mean that's what we strive for.
Yeah, एक indelible aspect, एक unignorable aspect इस सब में है of your conscience. Because as humans, we can only figure out intent so much. I cannot look at you and be like, अच्छा इसका intent ना ये है. It's just very difficult to do that bit, right? And so a lot of it depends on the human, and it's quite unfigure-outable. Because explanation का क्या है, bro? Explain तो मैं कुछ भी कर दूंगा. दुनिया को लगता है मैंने कुछ भी तो explain कर रखा है, जो ये मेरी controversy भी हुई है ना. Explain तो आप कुछ भी कर सकते हो, और कि एक पार्टी ने तो कुछ भी explain किया भी है, या तो मैंने या उन्होंने, है ना. Explanation itself is not enough. I think there is an element of conscience. And I think that is very, very essential as to what is it that makes you do what.
Actually, yeah. मैं actually explanation word को ना, I don't know if you have heard of the author, he's a philosopher also, but physicist David Deutsch. तो उसका उनका TED talk भी है, right? So the good explanations are hard to vary. So that's the concept that I believe in, ki if your explanation can vary just with any circumstance, then it's just not a good explanation. It is just super hard to vary. And that's why I think you have to address the variables that you rejected in the past and then include them in your new explanation ki why you rejected. So अगर Einstein नई explanation दे रहा है gravity की, so he has to say कि why वो Newtonian वाला नहीं work कर रहा है, so now I have the new explanation. So in that way, I see explanation in that a very scientific term, वो David Deutsch के term में. And I really love कि how science is ultimately about better and better explanations. So I really like his view. So
I'll say one thing, but it depends on how deep we want to go off the cuff.
Oh, I mean, we can go कोई चलता है वो तो time stamps पे डाल देंगे आगे के topic.
David Deutsch is talking about explanations as far as science is concerned. And David Deutsch is of the tradition of Thomas Kuhn and Karl Popper. Karl Popper and Thomas Kuhn are philosophers of science. Very, very interesting work. The word paradigm shift comes from Thomas Kuhn, if I'm not wrong, right? Which is the idea that you have now upgraded the definition such that the existing model kind of one collapses. Two, everything explained in the model previous is backwards compatible with or forwards compatible with the new definition. That you can do with things, with facts, with objects, with objective reality, which is what science studies. As far as some part of what I do, quite coincidentally. And not just that, as part as just understanding human and the phenomena of human. जिसको philosophy में phenomenology कहते हैं, which is how does the world appear to me, right? Explanations are almost never invariable. In fact, I would contend that the nature of explanation itself changes. And that is why art is a better explainer than science of human phenomena, because art, essentially what it does is, say it is one explanation, one narrative, the story of Ram, the story of Arjun, but with every person's window, that narrative has a different representation. So in a limited sense, the story of Ram, the story of Arjun, the story of Jesus, the story of Moses is one explanation, but the way it is perceived is completely variable. And in that way, Newtonian truth is different from Darwinian truth. Literal truth is different from metaphorical truth.
Although, see, here I differ a little bit because I am like so you can call somebody like an ultra rationalist type, which is, for me, reality is like the complete bedrock of things. So for me, when I say explanation, whether it's human explanation, subjective explanation, or it could be, let's say, physics-based, material-based explanations. For me, if it's a good explanation, I would say it's closer to reality. And a stupid explanation would be just different from reality. And मैं usually reality को दो चीज़ों में divide करता हूँ, which is the description part, which is, let's say, in this moment, you are thinking something which is part of reality, and there is table and there is everything. So that's the current status, and then the cause and effect. So which is knowing the principles of the world, which help you predict the future. So वो चाहे वो तुम 12 physics के वाले ले लो या otherwise तुम human laws ले लो. तो if I have a good grasp on reality, इसका मतलब क्या है? I should be able to describe reality today, and with decent confidence, or like मेरी accuracy होनी चाहिए prediction में भी. The better I can predict, the more I have a sense of reality. तो इसमें मैं humans को इसलिए separate नहीं देखता, क्योंकि let's say if I have to predict about Ram or Arjun or anybody, let's say किसी के भी बारे में समझना है, तो I see thoughts, beliefs, हमारा जो cognition है, right? Cognition के जो basic उनको मैं reality का ही part देख रहा हूँ. They are emerging from the brain. तो अगर मुझे thoughts का, desires का, beliefs का और मतलब emotions का laws जितना accuracy समझ आएगा, उतना ही मैं अपना अगेन डिस्क्रिप्शन समझ पाऊंगा और इतना ही मैं बेटर प्रिडिक्ट कर पाऊंगा. सो दैट्स हाउ आई थिंक ऑफ इट एज कि
there is a few very interesting things you are touching upon there, quite in a virgin way, right? Like I don't think you've read these things to probably understand. This is very instinctive and brilliant in that way. So the one thing you're touching upon is chaos theory. And chaos theory is simple, which is that if I know initial conditions and if I know...
Yeah, I know this, yeah.
Right, you know
Laplace's
theory,
demon,
right?
वो जो है कि...
Laplace's demon, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Laplace's demon has since been updated with quantum
theory, that it's, you cannot predict, of course, because there's probabilistic है, वो statistical है.
Right,
yeah.
One. Two, in your understanding of what is real, you are holding real as virtue. And this is me speaking purely philosophically. You are holding real as virtue. And what you will find if I dig deeper is that there is tautology, which is that I believe in everything that is real, and it is real because I believe in things. Like you will find that there is a circular reasoning. We don't have to get into that right now. The third thing I want to point at is when you say the law, and that is a separation I'm trying to drive here, is that laws, I don't mean legal laws, I mean law as in Newtonian laws and such, they apply to objects because they're inanimate and they can be treated with Laplace's demon properly. Humans have this illusion of free will. What Sartre describes as freedom itself. The idea that you have complete choice, that when you stand at the edge of the cliff, it is not that you will fall or the ground might betray you or the wind might betray you and push you. It is that you can jump, and you probably want a little bit of that. And so there is that element. What that does is laws go out of the window. The Platonic theory of forms, which is condensing everything down to the minimum.
No, so when I say law, I think what I mean is just you can call it principles or nature of things, right? For example, if I have, so for example, if I compliment you right now, I know for a fact that this could result in a smile, right? So I consider this as a law or a principle to some degree also, right? Because I know something about your psychology, कि a compliment will result into a smile. So in that sense,
maybe it'll make me conscious. Maybe it'll make me insecure.
And then it could be and उसके लिए भी explanation होगा, because probably you misunderstood it, और probably तुमने सोचा होगा कि maybe ये बंदा सिर्फ flattery के लिए बोल रहा है या he does not mean it or something, right? So usually रियलिटी में कोई इफेक्ट है, इट ऑफ कोर्स उसके कॉज में 5, 10, 15, 20,000 कॉजेज भी हो सकते हैं. तो मल्टीपल लॉज प्ले एट द सेम टाइम एंड वो रिजल्ट, जैसे रिग्रेशन में नहीं होता कि मल्टीपल वेरिएबल्स हैं और एक रिजल्ट आ रहा है, बट वो जो वेरिएबल्स हैं दे आर स्टिल इंडिपेंडेंटली स्टैंड अलोन फीचर्स ऑफ रियलिटी विच वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड एंड दे डू अप्लाई, इज व्हाट आई मीन.
Roughly. But it's almost like saying every time I add a variable, say I increase the probability of understanding human behavior by 0.3%. And so you might say, hello, add 300 variables and we are suddenly at 100%. To which I will say, by the time you're adding 300 variables, you've entered deep into chaos theory and you cannot understand anything at all. And therefore, the better way to understand is Thomas Kuhn's paradigm shift, which is discard existing notion, rebuild a new notion, and that new notion in my view is best placed in stories, art, cinema, music, and so on. There is a reason why music universally hits, because it is better than science in touching the soul.
But I would say, aren't these? I think these are addressing two different parts of, like, I think music का जो purpose है, which is like इस brain को pleasure मिल रहा है, ठीक है? So वो pleasure तो हमारे
reductive सिर्फ pleasure नहीं मिल रहा है, bro.
Of course there could be more things, of course there could be other purposes, but what I'm saying is हम तो ये कह रहे हैं कि let's say even if we were not alive, कोई alien आता है, right? और उस alien को इस दुनिया को समझना है, right? कि what's going on and what will happen. So मैं तो एक बार उस point of view से बात कर रहा हूँ कि जो explanation और science की बात है कि मैं science का scope कैसे देखता हूँ. Like मेरी understanding में nothing technically is out of the scope of science is pretty much my summary of my view कि even the art or literature stories उनकी भी understanding है what's happening, why it's happening. I'm not saying कि science will fulfill your soul or will make your life meaningful in itself, just that understanding. सिर्फ science पढ़ोगे तो it will be a boring life, but I'm just talking about explaining things कि क्या हो रहा है, क्यों हो रहा है. It's like because there are people who disagree with this कि no, science is not enough to understand all of the world. So
it is true. Yeah. In fact, this is the scientific rationalist approach, which is a very formidable approach in its way. But it has also since become so boring and out of fashion that people don't align with it. No, I'm telling you very factually.
No, but this is also explained by science, which is क्योंकि साइंस ने अगर तुमने ब्रेन को समझा है कि ब्रेन की जरूरत क्या है, इस ऑर्गन की जरूरत क्या है, तो इस ऑर्गन की जरूरत का जो पार्ट है, which is कि it needs that entertainment also, it needs stories, it maybe even need a god, right? It may need psychedelic experiences, whatever. So this need can also be explained by science, and it may be fulfilled by other than scientific explanations. Is what I'm saying. But, it's not out of that scope.
No, I hear you. You're making very reasonable points, and I'm only entertaining this further. But if you look at even psychology, bro, 40% replication crisis. They haven't been able. And so here is the thing. That is science. Science is not what I think is science. Science is the process of science, which is you come up with a hypothesis, you come up with alternate hypothesis, you gather data and such, and you will find that we cannot explain jack about the mind. In fact, I think the most brilliant contributions in psychology were done in the pre-scientific era, which is your William James, your Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, Horney, ये जो psychoanalytical end पे थे, या उससे पहले Nietzsche, who was a proto-psychologist of sorts. उसके बाद से I can count on my fingers good psychologists, academic psychologists who are influential. Carl Festinger and वो जो जिसने cognitive dissonance दिया, your Kahneman and Tversky, who were responsible for behavioral, and a few here and there. Like my names are escaping, but there is only a few here and there. Uske beyond, psychology has largely been what I can say a midget scientific process. It's just not done enough. And it even neuroscience, right? In neuroscience, the link between the brain and the mind, eternal mystery. We don't know how the brain leads to the mind. And this approach of trying to solve the psychological with the neurological has only so many marginal benefits. It's not to say that it's without merit, but it's so many marginal benefits. And so we are beginning to find out we can maybe even map the mind entirely. Map the brain entirely, but we cannot understand how mind is constructed from it one bit. It's totally unclear. In fact, behavioral biology, which is a complete field of study in its own way, where biology and how it dictates behavior. You know how we say testosterone बढ़ा दो, aggression बढ़ जाता है? नहीं बढ़ता. That's a lie. Testosterone बढ़ा दो, आपकी negotiation जो जिस भी स्टाइल से करते हो, you may do it through flattery, you may do it through aggression, वो increase हो जाती है. You might say oxytocin बढ़ा दो, प्यार बढ़ जाता है? नहीं बढ़ता. प्यार बढ़ता है, गुस्सा भी बढ़ता है.
But even if what you're saying is true, that's still established that there is a connection, right? It may just be that कि हमारा जो current understanding of connection है, that may be limited, faulty, and it may be updated because as more information comes in. But the thing is कि even जो mind के भी thoughts वगैरह हैं, like for example अगर हमारे जो range of beliefs ले सकते हैं, हम range of emotions भी ले सकते हैं, right? जो human experience का range है, वो in a way टेक्निकली इन्फिनिट है, बट अगर तुम पैटर्न्स निकालते हो तो वी सी लाइक अ लॉट ऑफ रिपीटिंग पैटर्न्स, और तुम यू कैन ट्रैक दिस डाउन टू अ लॉट ऑफ कॉजेज, एंड वन ऑफ द कॉजेज ऑफ कोर्स योर ब्रेन स्टेट, तुम्हारी मेमोरीज और तुम्हारा जो पास्ट है, बट देन देयर इज एनवायरनमेंट ऑल्सो, राइट? तो हम अगर ट्रेस करना चाहें, व्हाट आई मीन इज, अगर इफ यू कैन ट्रेस इट बैक टू सम कॉजेज, I think that's where you can say, okay, I have explained this. If you can trace it back to causes. तो अगर कुछ causeless हो जाए, then I would say कि okay, this is like just beyond our मतलब the scope of science or something. But I don't think there is anything causeless in that sense. तो हमारा जो thoughts, beliefs, everything is just that.
Sure.
I do agree कि क्योंकि 100 billion neurons हैं, तो वो जो एक्टिविटी है वो इतनी कॉम्प्लेक्स है कि वी आर प्रॉब्ली 500 और 1000 years और आई डोंट नो 5000 years away from fully being able to explain क्या क्यों आ रहा है. बट आई एम होपफुल मे बी सम डे वी विल हैव इनफ टेक्नोलॉजी टू लाइक रियली बी एबल टू फिगर इट आउट कि अच्छा व्हाट इज लाइकली नेक्स्ट मोमेंट में क्या होगा. सो मतलब जस्ट गेटिंग क्लोजर टू इट,
जस्ट क्रिएट अ डिटरमिनिस्टिक मशीन लाइक लाप्लासिस डीमन बन जाएगा.
या लाइक अगेन उसमें वो हमारा लाइक क्लोज टू दैट क्योंकि जो क्वांटम इफेक्ट्स, या सॉरी
नहीं प्लीज फिनिश.
नहीं, क्योंकि क्वांटम इफेक्ट्स भी जो है ना which kind of they go against the Laplace's demon वाला argument, they are technically उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है लाइक इन आर एक्सपीरियंस बेस्ड थिंग्स, वो बहुत लिमिटेड चीज़ों में, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आई थिंक रेडियो एक्टिविटी में आता है उसका, और ऐसे कुछ चीज़ों में इफेक्ट आता है. बट लेट्स से अगर आपको एक प्लेन मार्स पे भेजना है तो वहाँ पर आपको क्वांटम
नहीं लगेगा,
वो नहीं लगेगा. तो इन दैट सेंस जो हम अपनी लाइफ जी रहे हैं उसमें क्वांटम इट डज नॉट राइज अप इनफ टू काइंड ऑफ इम्पैक्ट अस डायरेक्टली, लाइक that's what I mean.
Sure, no doubt. And I see largely the difference between our viewpoints being your faith rests with the numbers and the statistics and the base hypothesis and alternate hypothesis argument. Right. I'm a little skeptical. But I'm skeptical on all fronts. Like my MO at this age is to be skeptical of mostly everything, because there is something called, this is a philosophical argument called Jesus smuggling, which is what religious people do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where they will be like, oh, you can't explain this.
This is
right?
Jesus, yeah.
And so it is in the same way that I am afraid of science smuggling. And not just science smuggling, but the process of undelible faith in science, allowing other bullshit to get smuggled. I'll give you an example. Science became the dominant worldview about 100 years after Nietzsche said God is dead. Right? We are 400 years into enlightenment. Science became the dominant worldview, where we try and establish as much as we can about our policies, laws, how we behave, XYZ, ABC through scientific data, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And you saw a parallel rise in newspapers reporting gibberish science. Drinking one glass of wine reduces your risk of heart failure by, and it's at that point you're like, what is the methodology? What is the cause? What is the correlation? And what is really the causation here? Like, you get into all of those things. And so what happens with an indelible faith in almost anything, be that science or otherwise, is that you're blind to everything else. That is the point at which I think people become ideological. It's a largely argued point in philosophy. But I think as soon as you believe, dogma sets in.
I think you have to begin with some starting assumptions. तो मुझे लगता है मेरा starting assumption ये है कि there is a thing called reality and it can be understood. ये मेरे स्टार्टिंग assumptions हैं. तो जब मैं इनसे
स्टार्ट बात पे क्योंकि बोलेंगे कितनी ऑब्वियस बात है, बट ये बहुत अच्छे स्टार्टिंग assumption है. दिस इज गुड फिलोसॉफी.
तो इसलिए मेरे को ये रियलिटी है इन इट कैन बी, इट इज इंटेलिजिबल. ठीक है, तो अगर मैं इन दो से स्टार्ट करता हूँ ना, तो आई गेट टू द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स दैट आई एम गेटिंग टू राइट नाउ, विच इज कि जो तुमने बताया, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल रेप्लिकेशन क्राइसिस है, न्यूज चैनल ये क्या कर रहे हैं, वो प्रॉब्लम पता है क्या, इट्स अ बैड एप्लीकेशन ऑफ साइंटिफिक मेथड, राइट? बट इट डज नॉट रिफ्यूट द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ और द पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ गुड वंस. तो मेरा ये है कि देयर विल बी people who will come along and will have better and better methods, but just because today some scientists are not trained enough to do it really well does not mean that better methods we won't come up with the better ones. So that's how
Okay, counter argument. This is the same optimism entrepreneurs have. If you talk to the CEO of any startup that is like coming to the front, ठीक है, क्रिप्टो में ढूंढ लो, क्रिप्टो में always blockchain पे नया innovation हो रहा है, go to a startup owner, be like, bro the future is this, bro the future is this, तेरे को 30 मिनट सुनाएगा, फिर बोलेगा हाँ यही तो करती है मेरी कंपनी. There is a sense of optimism. There is an upgrade in belief that happens because of what you do. And you do that because there has been an upgrade in belief. Right? For instance, let's take Prakhar. मैं बोल रहा हूँ भाई, conversation courses ही तो future हैं. Conversation courses, अरे हाँ मैं art of conversation उसी भी तो है. You see, like you will see this optimism across the board in entrepreneurs. They need it for things to work. This, what you're talking about, is a similar strand, similar version of this in sciences. Because the scientific process, the scientific academy as a whole is pointless if it accepts the fact that science won't be able to explain everything. They have to keep that optimism in mind where science will explain everything. And that is why we are on this adventure. You reverse validate your beliefs depending on your actions. And so for a scientist, of course, उसको तो मानना ही पड़ेगा ना भाई कि explainable है.
No, but
Elon Musk cannot have to.
The thing is, if you do not, मेरा एक वो है कि if you do not go by that assumption, right, कि everything there is a reality and it can be explained, then you run the risk of disqualifying yourself from the argument. क्योंकि क्या होगा फिर if somebody says कि ये अगर reality की जैसी कोई चीज़ नहीं और explain नहीं होती या फिर कुछ, तो the moment the next thing you say, like then how would that be taken seriously? Because then the thing is, then anybody can claim to what you say.
You destroyed the foundation. You've destroyed the foundation.
It's like वो I think Steven Pinker says something like कि जब तुम rationality पे आते हो, like people who say कि reason is the not top, we don't need reason. You've already lost the debate because you are just about to explain me why reason is bad, right? And now उसके लिए तुम reason दोगे. So इस reason से मैं बोलता हूँ कि जो reality को थोड़ा भी अगर disqualify कर देंगे या कहेंगे reality is not everything or understanding reality cannot be done, तो जब भी तुम बोल रहे हो, how do you know then कि you are going closer to reality, or जो तुम बोल रहे हो it has some meaning, or should we take it seriously, or it's just a dream, right? A very important factor in mental peace is that instead of just thinking and thinking internally, you should be able to talk about your frustrations to someone. But sometimes your friends and family can get tired of listening or might not even understand you well. That's why you should talk to a therapist. Your emotions need regular air ventilation. Your thoughts need regular garbage disposal, like once every week with a trained therapist. At Sridhar Life School, we have a team of therapists that you can talk to. Please go to sridharlifeschool.com to book your sessions. How do you know then कि you are going closer to reality, और जो तुम बोल रहे हो it has some meaning, or should we take it seriously, or it's just a dream, right? तो वो एक
You used Pinker. Let's get into Pinker.
Oh, I love Pinker.
The guy, by the way.
मेरा all time favorite वो है. मैं उसका ना पोस्टर लगवाने वाला हूँ पीछे, like मेरा all time favorite है वो.
I've actually hung out with Pinker.
Have you?
Taught by one of Pinker. Yeah.
I've man,
I'm picture with Pinker.
Jealous. Fuck.
जहाँ मेरे curly बाल है और Pinker के curly बाल है और हम बगल में खड़े हैं और मैं like I would call myself young Pinker looking at that picture. देखो इसके जैसा होना है बड़े हो क्या?
Prakhar, like I will do anything if you can arrange a podcast between you, me and Pinker. मतलब like तू कुछ भी बोल, I don't care भाई. मुझे seriously यार, ये मेरा, अगर मैं fan boy हूँ ना intellectually किसी का, so that's the guy Pinker, क्योंकि वो anyway, वो तो like
I'm going to throw fire at this right now. So hold up. I'll give you a little bit on Pinker. ठीक है?
Sure.
One of Pinker's favorite students at Harvard went on to teach me psychology at Columbia. ठीक है? And he was, तब तक मेरे को psychology पढ़नी नहीं थी. Sridhar, I had no interest in psychology. I wanted to study philosophy. ठीक है? So I walk into this class because my friend is taking this class, my roommate back then. और मेरा roommate पहले दिन क्लास से आता है, कहता है ब्रो आज हमारा प्रोफेसर क्लास में आया, कहता है तुम्हारी टिंडर प्रोफाइल बनानी सिखाऊंगा तुम्हें. मैंने कहा भाई ये कौन सी साइकोलॉजी क्लास है? हाँ, ये कह रहा है मैं तुम्हें टिंडर प्रोफाइल बनाने सिखाऊंगा. हमारे कल से मैं गया बैठने, पहले दिन 3 घंटे का लेक्चर था. मैं आधे घंटे में कन्विंस था मैं यहाँ से कहीं नहीं जा रहा. मैं 1 हफ्ते में कन्विंस था मेरा मेजर होगा साइकोलॉजी और मेरी स्पेशलिटी होगी एवोल्यूशनरी साइकोलॉजी. वो एवोल्यूशनरी साइकोलॉजी पढ़ाता था.
या
So Pinker's largest argument, which is the most popular argument, which is better angels of our time, and since then is that, you know, we live in a world that is better than we've ever seen, so on and so forth.
It has progressed, right? Enlightenment now.
Yeah, that we don't notice the progression, and the progression is awesome and beautiful and such. But what Pinker does not notice is roughly related to our previous discussion, is that even though violence has gone down, potential violence has gone up multi-folds. Incredible potential violence. So kinetic energy is low. But potential energy is increasing at a rate where we are in dangerous territory constantly.
Yeah, I understand.
Right? And we forget that. And so this is what happens with scientific data. When the approach of science is so limited right now, the approach of science is so limited that you do not see what is invisible. Another example I'll give you. This is structurally similar, but not literally similar. Okay. Dating apps. Right? Dating apps will ask you, hey Sridhar, how tall are you, la la la, etc., etc., etc. You will put it all down. And then you will go, probably you'll swipe with someone, you'll go meet them and they'll find you uninteresting. And the question, sorry, hopefully that does not happen. But my point is, largely you think when you swiped right on me, why am I uninteresting now? When I gave you all the data about me, which is what science does, how is it that that data is untrue now? I didn't lie. Those are my pictures from now. That is my height. That is my interest. What happened now? And the fact is that people are much more interesting in what they don't say about themselves than what they do. And that is where the real test of attraction happens. is in what you keep to yourself, is what is invisible. And so there is a very twisted way in which the phenomenology of consciousness is extremely perverse to how science approaches things. And I'm not pessimistic on science getting to where it must get to in describing the world. I am pessimistic about, this is sort of from the quantum space, but I'm concerned about how does the observer get integrated into single strand philosophy and laws and so on, when we find that at the base of science there is observer dependence in whatever little way, we are not sure.
And I think this is probably why क्योंकि जो reason है उसका जो एक quality है which is reflective, which is reason can think about reason and that can think about reason and that can think about reason. तो वो जो recursive चीज़ है, the observer can think about the observer and वो जो thought है and that can also be thought about. So हम जो recursively एक phenomena को बार बार सोच सकते हैं, that helps us get closer to reality. तो even though मैं अगर सिर्फ अकेला देखूंगा तो there will be so many blind spots. But that's why if I take your view into account and somebody else's view into account, you gave the example of dating app, right? मैं कहता हूँ वो जो invisible है, जो हमने नहीं भी शेयर किया, अब उस चीज को बैठकर समझा जा सकता है कि अच्छा, यू कैन अगेन रन एन एक्सपेरिमेंट ऑन इट कि इसने शेयर किया था, इसने नहीं शेयर किया था, एंड व्हाट इज इट, एंड यू कैन एक्चुअली सी कि अच्छा ये 4 बातें थी वो रिपीटेडली दिख रही है. तो वो जो पैटर्न आ रहा है एंड द फैक्ट दैट यू मेंशन्ड इट, राइट, that I call this description also part of science. तो मुझे लग रहा है कि शायद हमारे में वो जो डेफिनेशन है वो डेफिनेशन का डिफरेंस है कि मैं डेफिनेशन में क्या इंक्लूड कर रहा हूँ. लाइक आई थिंक मेरा एक वाइडर
एपिस्टेमिक डिफरेंस है और एक टेलियोलॉजिकल डिफरेंस है, which is where are we headed, and you are headed to the perfect point, the singularity of science. And I'm not. I'm headed towards a pessimistic hellfire. I am riding a motorcycle into hell, and you are like, nahi, sab theek ho jayega.
Speaking of
that. This is where it gets very interesting, bro. I love this kind of discussion because now we are able to very finely place exactly difference kya hai. Not much, a little, but enough. Go on. Sorry.
No. You can. You wanted to say something?
No. I was just excited. Like this is my territory. I love it.
हाँ. नहीं तो मेरा basically idea यही है कि anybody who claims, जैसे for example, I'll ask you actually before I say something, give me an like concrete example of life which is outside the purview of science. Like,
you want me to give you an example from life that,
well, anything which you think is outside the purview of science, which is you say, you know, science cannot like
a psychedelic experience.
Okay, and tell me why not?
Stop. Well, first of all, what they're able to study from psychedelic experiences entirely is what changes afterwards. And it's some psychedelic chodo, bro, psychology. Look at psychology. What are they studying with psychology? They're studying behavior with psychology. Because they cannot get into your mind. They cannot, by reason, they cannot access what is being thought of. Only what is being represented in behavior. So you take so do you not believe in the reliability of self-report at all?
No, bro.
I think
not
people
at all?
people know very little about themselves, and people are very concerned about how they're.
It is something
to themselves.
It does get us closer to, let's say, standing from a distance and just like saying कि this person really wants to kill me right now because they have a bad expression. That I would say very terrible explanation, as opposed to asking them, what are you thinking right now? Oh, I'm just really annoyed that my mother just cursed me for nothing, and like I'm outside, I'm in a bad mood. So which one is closer to reality? I would say the second one, because we ask the person.
It could also be. मैं तेरे को एग्जांपल देता हूँ, ठीक है? तू फरीदाबाद से दिल्ली जा रहा है, एक रास्ता है रोड पे जाता है सीधा, ठीक है? सपोज रोड नहीं दिख रही तेरे को, एक दूसरा रास्ता है जो पहाड़ों से जाता है, एंड यू लाइक मैं पहाड़ों वाले रास्ते से जाऊंगा. आई हैव ब्रॉट यू टू द पॉइंट वेयर जहां तू अगर और आगे गाड़ी चलाएगा तू पहाड़ से गिर जाएगा, बट यू बी लाइक बढ़िया तो है, आई एम क्लोजर टू इट. इट्स द रॉन्ग वे. You might be closer to it, but it might be completely wrong as an approach. This is Thomas Kuhn's point, is that previous definitions of science come close, but not quite there. Therefore, we need new definitions in science. And those, when they look back at previous definitions, say completely wrong. Break that down.
No, but the thing is, हम जो direction है उसको, the process of science is कि you have multiple checkpoints for the same information, right? तो जो मैंने ये example दिया, इसमें you can check that by actually going and asking the mother. Somebody can go and ask the mother क्या हुआ था आज सुबह, and that would explain. और हमें human nature पता है कि अगर कोई डांटेगा तो mood थोड़ा off होगा, right? So हम
not necessarily.
मतलब एटलीस्ट हमें लाइक लार्जली पता है कि लेट्स से एक फाइट के बाद इट कैन हैवन, प्रोबेबिलिटी है राइट कि मूड खराब हो सकता है, तो प्रोबेबिलिटी है, प्लस मॉम ने कंफर्म किया और उसका फेस एक्सप्रेशन देखा, वी हैव 3-4 थिंग्स दैट एक्सप्लेन समथिंग एज अपोज टू समबडी जो कि जैसे मिडिवल टाइम्स में कि अच्छा इसको किसने मारा, विच हंट कर लेते हैं, ठीक है विच ने मारा होगा पता ही नहीं कुछ। तो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि हमारा जो अभी वाला प्रोसेस था जिसमें हमने 3-4 चेक पॉइंट्स लिए, इट इज स्लाइटली बेटर द फर्स्ट वन, एंड दैट्स हाउ साइंस बिकम्स राइट, इट बिकम्स बेटर एंड बेटर एंड बेटर, एंड दिस इज व्हाट आई बिलीव इन कि इफ वी कीप डूइंग दैट, तो क्या होता है अगर हम अपनी साइकोलॉजी के पार्ट्स को, चाहे हम थॉट को ले रहे हैं, डिसीजन को ले रहे हैं, जैसे कानेमन त्वर्स्की ने क्या किया, बायसीज पे बहुत अच्छा काम किया, तो उन्होंने एक फीचर लिया साइकोलॉजी का, उसको बहुत अलग अलग एंगल से देखा, एंड नाउ वी नो समथिंग, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अवेलेबिलिटी ह्यूरिस्टिक राइट, विच इज समथिंग वी अंडरस्टैंड एंड वी कैन ऑब्जर्व दैट इन पीपल राइट। तो अब ये one part of psychology has been understood better than before is what I mean. So it's not zero.
Of course.
इसे black box नहीं है, and if this process is continued over years and years, so like we'll know more and more, and that's why I see कि mind is completely.
I'm not saying destroy science. I'm not saying that, and so that needs to be weeded out of your argument. Otherwise, we'll get nowhere. Because ऐसा नहीं कह रहा मैं कि science has no virtue. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying कि,
and I'm not saying
mind is also. You said right कि mind can be psychological experiences can be outside the purview of science. What I say कि जैसे जो मैंने example दिया, जो Tversky और Kahneman ने किया, उन्होंने mind का एक part को they brought it under good explanations. And
I'll give you another example. Tell me what you think. Okay? We used to run this exercise in our classroom in social psych ka class, right? What we would do is we'd give a situation. Situation is XYZ ABC happens. ठीक है? वो situation would be एक बंदा खाना ऑर्डर करने गया, उसको उसने बोला मेरे को ये चाहिए, लेकिन फिर एकदम मैनेजर आता है, कहता है नहीं मैं रीअरेंज कर रहा हूँ ये सारे मेन्यू ऑप्शंस, इनको इतना डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूँ, अब आपको क्या चाहिए, आप कौन सा लोगे कौन सा नहीं लोगे, इस टाइप के मतलब बहुत ही रेगुलर डिसीजन मेकिंग सॉर्ट ऑफ सिचुएशंस। एंड देन द प्रोफेसर वुड से नाउ एक्सप्लेन दिस यूजिंग ऑपरेंट कंडीशनिंग, एक्सप्लेन दिस यूजिंग बेम सेल्फ परसेप्शन, एक्सप्लेन दिस, और लाइक विच वन डू यू प्रेफर, व्हाई वुड दिस हैपन। एंड सो व्हाट वी स्टार्टेड रियलाइजिंग अराउंड दैट पॉइंट इज दैट ईच ऑफ दीज सिचुएशंस, ऑल ऑफ दीज थ्योरीज आर एप्लीकेबल एंड ऑल ऑफ देम प्रोड्यूस स्लाइटली डिफरेंट रिजल्ट्स. And this is what I mean, because what has been tested in each of these theories is behavior, and not just behavior, but 60 or so % of that behavior inclines in a certain way, and that 60 or so % over several times, 0.6 into 0.6 into 0.6 into 0.6 into 0.6 is closer to 0.011 something already. So you are close to zero, and this is what I mean, because you cannot access what is happening in the mind. All you are left with is the symptom. Psychology is essentially a sign of symptoms, science of symptoms, and that is not good enough. Now, let me take you one degree further. Look at psychedelics, right? Ibogaine. My video on Ibogaine drops tomorrow. Ibogaine has an insane result when it comes to addiction treatment. Insane. Like, no, nothing that pharmacology has produced up until has the same effect. Right? 80% of the people who are regular heroin users don't want to use it again after one trip of Ibogaine. Nobody knows why. And the funny part is they cannot explain why. Ayahuasca. People go into ayahuasca, come back completely different. We can see the symptom. We can see the symptom. We can measure the symptom also. Say, what is your happiness level? But you ask the person, hua kya? Unshunt explanation. Mushrooms. End of life treatment at John Hopkins. People go into... When they did that study, Anyway, this is MAPS. Medically assisted psychotherapeutic service, sab dimag se nikal gaya. Anyway, MAPS did the study at John Hopkins where they gave end of life terminal patients who had cancer mushrooms, and they studied it. This is where Michael Pollan came up with the idea for how to change your mind. Anyway, people come out, these people are dying, they come out of the trip and they're like, you know what, I'm more happier, like I'm more content dying, I'm no longer as worried about dying. And you think there is no real way, nowhere even close we can get to understanding that experience. अरे तुम साइंस छोड़ो, us as humans, अगर तुम उनकी बात भी सुनोगे तो मैं नहीं समझ आएगा क्यों ओके हो तुम. I don't know how much you've experimented with psychedelics, and I don't want to necessarily talk about it on socials, but bro, I have seen shit. I have seen fucking shit that is pure magic. I'm not kidding. I mean, all medical students in India have done ketamine. ठीक है, let's not lie. All of them have done ketamine. कर दो explain क्या हुआ तुम्हारे साथ.
Well, I would say to that कि if it's not explainable right now, it will. I would say not yet. Someday it will be. But ठीक है, मतलब again I think we have hashed out the.
No, we have, but I think we necessarily enter at that point the domain of subjectivity, and objectivity must not be approached there. We should not try to, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm more happy in the poetry aspect of it. Maybe you are not, but brilliant conversation.
Yeah, I mean, but even like I loved the again pushbacks also, and I also enjoyed this exercise. So I don't think I've had this in a long time. So yeah, it was great to have.
I had one buddy like this all my life. Only one guy who would push back.
Okay. Yeah, because the thing is, अभी if this conversation can go, मुझे लगता है कि एक पॉइंट तक हम आ जाएंगे, बट मुझे लगता है उसमें लगेंगे 3 घंटे, ठीक है? क्योंकि वो क्या उसमें पता क्या होगा, मुझे लगता है कि इसको रिजॉल्व करने का अल्टीमेटली तरीका होता है, तुम बहुत छोटी सी बात को लेके चलते हो, और ये मैंने करा हुआ है लाइफ में कि जब एक छोटी सी बात को लेते हो और इधर उधर नहीं जाने देते, फिर उस बात पर तुम्हारा व्यू मेरा व्यू, एंड वो लंबा टाइम बहुत है. तो किसी दिन जब हम 4 घंटे का पॉडकास्ट करेंगे ना, उस दिन तब आगे खींच देंगे, ठीक है? तो ये मेरा जो पहला सवाल होने वाला था वो मैं आप पूछूंगा. तो सो इट्स अप टू यू हाउ मच डिटेल यू वांट टू गेट इनटू. ये मेरा था एलिफेंट इन द रूम, बट व्हिच आई एम गोना ब्रिंग अप राइट नाउ, द कंट्रोवर्सी. तो अच्छा, पहले तो अब मुझे एक बार करंट स्टेटस बताओ, लाइक व्हाट इज, वेयर आर यू राइट नाउ, व्हाट्स योर करंट स्टेटस एंड वेयर आर थिंग्स राइट नाउ, लाइक, एंड या.
आई एम इन माय होम इन न्यूयॉर्क सिटी, ब्रो.
Chilling.
Bro, happy as hell. It has been very interesting, to say the least. Very interesting overall. This year, मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है I'm only beginning to get a handle on my narrative now, which is what I'm beginning to only understand what this year has meant for my life now, because it's been huge in so many ways. As far as the controversy is concerned, I'm not going to comment too much, particularly because the matter is sub judice, and just because my opponents don't understand how to respect what is in court. I do, and therefore I will not delve into the details of the matter. But it is safe to say the matter is in court. The hearings are going on, and we will have a result very soon. And I'm confident which direction the result will swing, because I know what evidence I've given and what at this point the responses have been. So,
okay. So मेरा इसमें now there's something that I want to know कि ये जो हुआ, of course, उस मैटर में क्या होगा, because वहाँ 2 इंडिविजुअल इन्वॉल्व हैं and you're involved. But what happened with you was, this was like a phenomena I had not seen in Indian YouTube space कि इस level पर YouTube community involve हो गई थी, right? And like people, there was of course the hashtag save Shvedab gang war, and I could see the comments on your posts as well. तो वो जो period था, like did you go through all of those comments, and like did you actually?
No, I think up until July, I was still interested. जब मैंने लास्ट वीडियो निकाला था ना, गुड बाय वाला, I was still like कि ठीक है, इसको मेरिट पे फाइट करते हैं, इसको पब्लिक में फाइट करते हैं, इसको ढंग से फाइट करते हैं, और इस प्रोसेस में कुछ सीखने सिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं. ठीक है. एक लार्ज कंफ्यूजन लोगों को ये, मैंने लोगों की हेल्प मांगी. मैं लोगों की हेल्प अंडर वैल्यू नहीं कर रहा, मैं ऑडियंस की हेल्प अंडर वैल्यू नहीं कर रहा. बट अगर तुम ध्यान से देखोगे, पहली वीडियो में मैंने ये नहीं बोला प्लीज आओ मेरे को सपोर्ट दो, मैंने कहा मैं खड़ा हूं पीछे, तुम्हें कोई बुली नहीं करेगा. वो बहुत केयरफुल फ्रेमिंग थी. बिकॉज मेरे को हेल्प मांग के, ठीक है, लाइक यू नो पीपल कैन मेक अप देयर माइंड, बट ना मेरे को हेल्प मांग के कुछ इतना कुछ चेंज होने वाला था मेरे, एक्सेप्ट मे बी अ फ्यू वैलिडेशन और अप्रूवल वाला थिंग्स. और लार्जली माई अटेम्प्ट वाज टू शो हाउ टू नॉट बी बुलीड in that instance, so that I know how people suffer, bro. I have been bullied in my childhood. I know so many people who've been bullied in their childhood. I did not want that to be a repeat instance. I wanted to set an example. The second one, I was more concerned about how legality is used to threaten people. The second video, which is Goodbye Sandeep Maheshwari. And luckily enough, I've come from a family that speaks legal tongues. We are very thorough with that language. हमारे यहाँ conversation होती है तो the words that you use, prima facie and whatever, is not too far off. It's very like conversational for us. And so that video was my attempt for entertainers who get threatened with legal threats, how to handle them. And I spent 45 bloody minutes doing that video. But beyond that, I understood something very unique, which is that one of my opponents was not playing in good faith. They didn't care about good faith. They had no concept of good faith. They just wanted to win in public, and they would do anything for that. And beyond that, I was like, I'm not going to engage in this. Then the second player came in, and I don't want to comment anything about them because that probably gives them leverage in court in some form or fashion. And so my thoughts about them will be...
So, I mean, yeah, of course, but you may not have read the comments, but you must have gotten an idea, right? Ki how people are turning against you, right? वो तो आ ही गया था. And that's why you created the video also. तो मुझे वो जानना है, because see, the thing is, like, as I am also doing this, you know कि तुम थोड़ा बहुत क्रिटिसिज्म ले लेते हो जब मार्जिन्स पे होता है, तुम्हें पता है कि यार रहेंगे, बट जब वो टाइड चेंज होकर मेजोरिटी में आ जाए, देन आई कांट इमेजिन लाइक हाउ दैट मस्ट फील. क्योंकि तुम ये सोचते हो कि व्हाट डिड दैट अफेक्ट यू?
I'll tell you. Of course, it affected me. It affected me in ways I'm still trying to decipher. And that is partly what is so adventurous about my life in the present moment. Is that something massive has happened, and how do you make sense of it? And that is genuinely, like, weirdly exciting. I'm like, अच्छा, अब इसको समझना पड़ेगा. पूरी जितनी आज तक तुमने philosophy, psychology समझी है, वो लगेगी यहाँ पे, right? In fact, I would even say I understood that I have to understand this only like a week ago. उससे पहले तो I was just reeling from the after effects of all of this. So it was undoubtedly huge. The one qualm I want people, whoever is interested, ठीक है, whoever is interested to understand is that ऐसा नहीं होता कि आदमी के चेहरे पे डर नहीं होता, या आदमी की फटती नहीं है, या आदमी की हालत खराब नहीं होती है. तब भी कौन खड़ा है वो मैटर करता है. और वो मैंने किया अपने को एग्जाम्पल देने के लिए. जितने लोग मेरे पे आज भी भरोसा करते हैं उनको एग्जाम्पल देने के लिए. अब मेरे को पता है लाइफ में कितनी भी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ जाए, मैं डबल से भी ज्यादा तैयार हूं जितना मैं पहले से था. तो मैंने I faced the toughness of the situation head on. However, as far as reading comments and everything goes, I had already understood there is no point. मैंने बहुत पहले जितनी भी ये नॉइज है, I see that as a comment on people's moral fiber, that they could not keep it together when things were bad. This is not the conduct of leaders. This is not the conduct of strong people. This is not people who have their shit in control. Because a lot of people did not comment. A lot of the YouTubers did not come because they have that moral fiber, or at least they don't want to be part of it, which is still better than needlessly being part of it because pressure hai public ka. At that point, you've become a slave to your audiences. At that point, you're people who follow what people want you to follow. You are not individual anymore.
No, so just to like from their point of view, some of them I do see, like for example, जिनका YouTube channel इस बारे में है, which is they have to comment on, let's say, moral stuff or trending stuff. तो उनका तो like your controversy would be just one among many जो उनकी लिस्ट में आती होगी, and ये ongoing है, बड़ी है, तो like of course they would comment. And I understand अगर तुम objectivity से वो करते हो, but yeah, I do think see कि उसमें काफी players ऐसे होंगे जो opportunistic भी होंगे कि just because अभी इस पर views आ रहे हैं.
Opportunistic की बात नहीं है. Opportunistic की बात नहीं है. Opportunistic मैं किसी को नहीं बोल रहा. Opportunistic is not the label I'm looking at. मेरे को I largely do not want to comment on channels who comment on everything, because ऐसे होते हैं channels. And personally, as a consumer, not as a colleague, don't take this as a colleague. As a consumer, I am not too fond of that. It seems very like, bro, तेरे को क्या घंटा पता होगा क्या हुआ है यार, तूने already video बना दिया है. As far as what I mean by having the moral fiber is like, अब जैसे अमन और अलख का सीन चल रहा है, फिजिक्स वाला और अमन का, ठीक है? To me, it is an interesting artifact because it is helping me process my situation from a distance. So I am curious about it. And I have tweeted here and there a little bit about it too. Okay? Yeah. But I'm not taking sides. But my moral fiber
let me ask you, before this controversy, would you have or not? Like now that you understand it very personally, like 6 months back or 8 months back, would you have or not taken sides?
I am a very loyal person overall.
You value loyalty, right? Like let's say, so 8 months back, let's say अगर कुछ ये वाला scene होता है and you had not experienced it, तो maybe you would have come out with some like premature or just come information के साथ, okay, this is what's happening. Who knows, right?
नहीं. No? I'll tell you something also. When the pressure gets that high, that is the right time to stand still. That is something I can tell you for sure. हो सकता है in जैसे अभी अगेन हाइपोथेटिकल्स, ओके, अमन और अलग का लेवल यहाँ पे अभी कंट्रोवर्सी का अभी गर्म हो रही है. दिस इज प्रोबेबली द टाइम आई कैन सी माई लॉयल्टी किकिंग इन 8 months ago, 1 year ago. But once the pressure is that high, you must wait. And you will see tweets like Lakshay Chaudhary's tweet around that time, and a few other folk around that time were like, रुक जाओ, प्रखर का रिस्पॉन्स आने दो, because they figured it out. They've played this game long enough to know किस तरीके से परसेप्शन मोल्ड होता है चीजों का. और जब उतना प्रेशर है ना भाई, तब तो पक्का रुको, तब तो पक्का उस टाइम तो तुम बिल्कुल स्थिर रहने चाहिए हो, क्योंकि लोग यहां वहां भाग रहे हैं. उस टाइम पे तुम्हारा काम
है. 100% agree with myself. मैं तो मानता हूँ कि यार एटलीस्ट तुम एक बार तो पूरी दोनों साइड की बात सुन लो. एक बार तो ये बात सही है कि जनता को चाहिए होता है, पीपल वांट कि अच्छा भाई ये मेरा फेवरेट यूट्यूबर क्या बोल रहा है. अब वो यूट्यूबर के पास है कि मेरे को वीडियो बनाना है और इन्फॉर्मेशन तो इतनी सी मिली है, बट अब जो है उस पर बनाते हैं. और आई थिंक व्हाट दे लाइक, दिस इज नाउ माई प्रिस्क्रिप्शन प्रोबेबली टू अदर पीपल, विच इज कि अगर तुम्हें बनाना ही उस टॉपिक पर, वो कीप दैट पॉसिबिलिटी कि ओपन कि चलो लेट्स वेट. तुम अपनी वीडियो में ये बात बोल दो कि चलो एक बार उसका वीडियो आ जाता है, फिर हम पूरा मेकअप पॉइंट कर पाएंगे, तो उतने में ही तुम रैशनल हो जाते हो थोड़ा सा. नाउ स्पीकिंग ऑफ योर वर्क, अभी यूट्यूब चैनल का यू मेंशन, राइट? सो ये दिस इज समथिंग आई वांट टू नो. सो व्हाट्स लाइक राइट नाउ, हाउ बिग ऑफ अ टीम डू यू हैव इन, how many people?
I don't count, but I think around 10.
10 people?
Between 7 and 10 people, yeah.
And these are full time or like
Most of them are full time.
Most of them are full time. All right. And so because and most of them are involved in your like editing content or like which
bunch of stuff. We have somebody who manages the business operations. We have somebody who manages content. We have somebody who manages specific kinds of content. We have editors in place. We have writers in place. We have research assistants in place. We have marketers in place. So we have a whole thing going.
So what's your current philosophy with YouTube? Like where do you want to take it? And like, what's your current understanding of who am I as a YouTuber, and where are you taking this Prakhar ke pravachan?
I will pass that question.
How come?
Largely because I don't want to be too quick to answer it to myself.
You can answer it for next 3 months, maybe?
Maybe, possibly.
No, for next 3 to 6 months? Immediate plans?
Right now I'm trying to be focused on the next video I make. And I think that is the path to sanity for myself.
You're taking it a video at a time?
One video at a time. And somebody else is managing the vision statement. Who you should have on the podcast is my partner, Asim. He has vision. He does that bit now. I focus on getting the channel back alive. So I can tell you a lot about how, even that I don't want to talk about right now. But right now it's one video at a time.
And yeah, I agree, by the way. That is a good approach to have, because that's ultimately what you have to come down to. And I, by the way, I should congratulate you. I saw the recent videos and you have taken it up a notch for sure. The editing is like amazing. And तो एक वीडियो को बनाने में अभी कितना टाइम लग रहा है from idea to execution?
Bro, idea का तो database है मेरे पास. This is stuff I've been like, मैं तो ये बोलता हूँ, इससे पहले तक मैं content बनाता ही नहीं था. मैं सिर्फ online आता था, बात करता था. Right? I was a speaker up until now. I'm getting into content creation now. So the database for ideas has existed forever. This is stuff that's in the background of my head. We have a database somewhere online, somewhere जहाँ पे हमारे पास सारे ideas listed हैं. Now it takes 3 days to edit, 30-40 minutes to record. And the ideation can take as long as you want, which is how much research do you want to include and such and so on.
And scripting वगैरह वो सब like सारा part जो writing वगैरह का,
हमारी scripting doesn't take too long. Like scripting, we've been figuring out what we want to script and what we don't want to script to. Right? Because सब कुछ script करने में फिर वो मजा नहीं आता वीडियो बनाने में मेरे को. So I don't want to script the whole thing.
Keep some spontaneous and like कुछ major points you just write down कि ये flow में बोलना है मुझे. So you basically write those points down.
Roughly. मतलब अगर मैं script कर लेता हूँ, I feel very limited in my expression. And my expressions everywhere.
And that's actually one of your strengths, free expression. That's what I've seen.
Agreed.
So yeah.
Agreed. So dialing it down, the first 2 videos we did were completely scripted. And that was because I needed something to hold on to while I psychologically went through the stuff I was going through. I didn't know this was what was happening, but the first 2 videos were completely scripted. And I had written those scripts completely from start to finish. Around the 3rd video, I was writing a script for why motivation's a lie. Because I'd come across something very poignant to explain that phenomena. Why is motivation, like, at this point, everybody knows, right? Like I saw Lakshay, I'm a big fan of, by the way, I love his content. Lakshay made a video on one of these motivational guys and he was like, sabko pata hai motivation is a short-term phenomenon, right? I'm like, if at this point roasters understand that, then the world understands that, right? And why is it a short-term phenomenon? So I was writing about it. And that essay I wrote 5 times. I started with a different angle. I went into a different angle 5 times and I was like, koi point nahi hai. Ye nahi banega. Because there is too many conflicts. One, मैं ऐसे लिख दूंगा, which is going to be great writing for a person who's interested in reading, but it's not content. मैं content लिख दूंगा, but then I will have to betray the actual substance. मेरे को उसमें से वो जो abstraction की जो load है वो निकालनी पड़ेगी. लोग नहीं सुनेंगे, लोग follow नहीं कर पाएंगे, टिकेंगे नहीं, average view duration drop कर जाएगा. So then we decided to sort of reinvent and adopt a different format, and that is when we came up with the 3rd video, जो रामायण वाला वीडियो है. And उस format को हम अब 2-3 videos test and try करेंगे, फिर देखेंगे कितना sharp. तो we are also figuring that bit out quite actively, which is what is the kind of content that does the most justice to what I want to do. So the stories we tell ourselves took me 45 minutes to an hour to write, at least the first draft. And it is because the idea is sort of prepared in my head. I just have to go boom, and it's like a daze. I get into some kind of hypnosis where it's and you cannot disturb me, don't make noise, like I'm in a zone, right? और उसके बाद edit करा होगा आधा पौना घंटा बैठ के, और अगले दिन एक बार और आधा पौना घंटा. Recording took 45 minutes to an hour, and then the editing takes a little while. उसमें भी ideation of editing takes the longest while because you have to make notes and so on and so forth. So, but I'd say roughly around a week is accurate right now because we are working with a single unit, which is one editor, one content manager, one RA. And my job now is going to be to scale these units. So we can do 2, but not before I start PG Radio again. Everything has to be rebuilt. We are in a very fortuitous position right now. We are very lucky because we get to restart everything. It's complete liberty. You don't get that. You don't get that very easily. So the next step is PG Radio. PG Radio must begin very soon.
The podcast.
Yeah. And then we will get back onto a second piece of content on Pravachan. Filhal, we'll stick to one Wednesday 9 p.m. Every Wednesday 9 p.m. you can come watch us.
That's great. So a lot is going on, and so in a day of Prakhar ki Pravachan, or in Prakhar Gupta actually. So because you're managing so many things, because I've also been in similar positions because I have this work and I have an organization too, and me personally, I actually don't do well with a lot of things going on. So मैं बहुत simplify करता हूँ. But are you somebody who like enjoys multiple things, or is it like a burden on you? Because एक वो balance आता है, right? And what does your day look like? I mean, right now.
Good question. Do I enjoy doing a lot of things? I enjoy doing big things. I enjoy doing.
But initially,
I enjoy doing stylish big things. And swag. My style is very private. Not swag. Swag is so like Gen Z. But it's what it is going to be, I'm unsure. But I know where I'm headed largely. It's in the big world, big games. I'm very fond of those. One. Because I've also lived the small game life for a very long time. And I know I love it, but I don't want to do that forever. Which is like the small game life is what I used to live before travel. On foot, here and there. Spend 1 महीना यहाँ, 2 महीना वहाँ, पड़े हुए हैं, देख रहे हैं निकरों में अपनी. So one, there is the big game life. 2, I almost never consider the details of what it requires. It requires a lot, bro. Like if I begin to list down the number of things I'm doing every day, oh my God, bro. It is insane. It is so much work. Legitimately, from the moment I wake up.
Yeah.
I've recently begun to cap my working hours at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock के बाद कुछ नहीं. 4 o'clock के बाद I give myself purposeful free time. For
so
ideas
from what
to
time
set
to what
in.
time do you work?
10 to 4.
Oh, 6 hours.
At this point, 10 to 4 non-stop. Like no breaks. Maybe 10-15 minutes in the middle. 10 to 4 non-stop.
And what happens
4
after
o'clock
4?
4 o'clock के बाद I give my... This is starting yesterday, by the way. और कल भी वो deadline खिंच के 5 हो गई थी. 5 बजे free हुआ मैं. But मेरा point ये 4 बजे के बाद मैं अपने आप को complete free time दूंगा to do nothing because I've not done that for 9 months about now. Maybe even 10. Since January, I've not had free time. Zero free time. Zero. ऐसा नहीं होता कि संडे ऑफ ले लेते हैं, बट तब तक तुम इतने एग्जॉस्टेड होते हो पूरे हफ्ते से कि तुम सिर्फ सोते रह जाते हो, घर पे पड़े रह जाते हो. मैं भूल गया हूँ नेगेटिव स्पेस. तो मैं नेगेटिव स्पेस पर्पसफुली इंसर्ट कर रहा हूँ अपने स्केड्यूल में so that you know random thinking can happen, connections that are waiting to occur in the back of your mind can happen, right? And then largely towards the close of the night I'll do some more work, or I will watch something that I find completely baffling and brilliant. Like conversations podcasts I'm very fond of and such.
Who are your favorites? Can you tell me some? Like
right now podcasting में Lex Friedman's taking the cake for me.
Yeah, I like him too.
I've been listening to a lot of Lex, partly because I follow a lot of poker and chess content. And Lex got
you like
Daniel
poker?
Negreanu. I love poker, bro.
Oh man, I love poker too. High five.
High five. So I saw Daniel Negreanu on Lex completely. I saw Hikaru.
Yeah, I watched that too. And Daniel Negreanu ka pura.
Right. So like this is, and then from there, Kanye West is one of my favorite folks in the creative world. And so I was listening to Kanye's conversation.
Bhai, abhi jo ho raha hai. Like, bhai, what do you think about that? Actually, Kanye.
I think what Kanye said was patently wrong. I think Kanye is going through not mental health shit. Mental health shit he's going through, but that's not what I'm attributing this to. I think the West gives people, treats mental health as this untouchable sort of cause to problems. And it's not the case. I think Kanye is dealing through pain. largely, which
He
is
is,
very
yeah.
reflected in his conversation with Lex. He cannot get over Kim and he cannot get over women. In that conversation, the fact that his family got broken is taking him in a bad place. And I think Kanye is trying to equate personal pain with pain, historical pain of a community. But I still think he's a creative genius, and I still think he's worth listening to.
Yeah, that he is for sure. I think
he's
I don't
a
know if
very
you watch.
interesting novel mind.
I don't know if you watch Andrew Schultz, उसका जो Flagrant podcast है.
मैंने देखा कल उसका कोई क्लिप आया उस पर जिस पे उसने बात करी है इस बारे में ना.
उसने एक अच्छा पॉइंट बोला था which is what I liked actually, कि उसमें like Kanye का ये है, एक तो पेन वाला of course part है, like he's going through a lot for sure and he's like actually heartbroken अभी ये सब जो हुआ है, and that's part of it, but he's also somebody who always knew, and this is like a wild theory but I kind of liked it, कि he knew how to make shit cool. लाइक कल को वो रैंडम चीज़ें लेके आएगा और उसने लाइफ लॉन्ग किया शूज़ के साथ, फैशन के साथ, कि जो कोई नहीं पहन रहा होगा ना वो पिंक चीज़ पहन के आएगा, बोलेगा आई विल मेक इट कूल, एंड ही डिड मेक इट कूल, राइट. तो ही हैज ऑलवेज पुश्ड बाउंड्रीज विद दैट, एंड जैसे उसने ही ऑलमोस्ट डिड दैट विद व्हाइट लाइव्स मैटर, राइट. इट वाज लाइक यू कुड नॉट से इट बट ही सेड इट एंड देन इट वाज सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक पीपल अलाउड इट, बट राइट नाउ आई थिंक ही वेंट टू फार. ही थॉट कि वो जो जूइश मीडिया वाला भी लाइक ही कैन गो कुछ भी बोल सकता है बट अल्टीमेटली एक्सेप्टेंस आ जाएगा, लोग फॉलो कर लेंगे. बट नाउ दिस टाइम ही लाइन इतना क्रॉस कर दिया कि अब nobody can get behind him anymore. So
it seemed like from the podcast with Lex that Kanye does not understand the depth of the Jewish problem. The problems that Jewish people face is a better phrasing of that. Because I've been involved quite integrally with Jewish politics, particularly Israeli politics and its activism at Columbia. A lot of my friends were Israelis. And the reason why my friends were Israelis, I remember this is a very interesting formative story in my background. I was on Columbia walking through the campus, beach mein ek road hai, walking there, and there are two protests happening parallelly. One is the Israeli side, the other is the Palestinian side. They both protest or celebrate in the same week. Jewish Liberation Week hota hai, nahi, Palestinian Liberation Week hota hai, Jewish kuch aur week hota hai, theek hai, aisa same day, same. So I go to the Israelis, I talk to them, they tell me about their situation. I go to the Palestinians, they show me a middle finger. They're like, fuck off. Because probably from my appearance or from the fact that I was speaking to the Israelis, for whatever reason, they thought I was part of their crew trying to encroach or some bullshit like that. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I'm just trying to ask. And they were like, no, go away from here. And I was like, okay, now you've chosen the side for me. And by that default, what happened is I started speaking to the Israeli guys a little more and I made friends with some of them. One of them ended up being my roommate for a very long time. And then I remained invested in what is happening. If you ask the Israelis, at least the guys who were on campus back then, they will tell you they have enough reason to dislike me. Because I've done tough question asking to them in places I should not have done, at least according to them. But I at least remain very invested. So I would keep finding out kya history hai, kya. In fact, I went to Israel. I went to Palestine also. I sat with people in Israel and Palestine trying to figure out exactly. Ha, bro, deep. I've been to Gaza border. I've been inside Ramallah. I've been to Beit Safafa. I've been to Jerusalem. I've done the whole thing. And like literally just a geopolitical tour. I've been to the edge of Syria, bro. वो Golan Heights में, bro, ऊपर जाके, ठीक है. First of all, when you're climbing up the Golan Heights, they're short mountains. They're not as tall as the Himalayas. And they say exclusively now nobody gets off the vehicle. Because ये पूरे एरिया में माइंस है, हमें नहीं पता कहाँ का.
Fuck.
ठीक है, फिर तुम पूरा क्लाइंब करके जाते हो और फिर तुम टॉप पे आते हो और टॉप पे ना गाड़ियां चलनी बंद हो जाती हैं. So they need 4x4s. ठीक है, वो 4x4 पे बैठाएंगे तुम्हें और फिर ना तुम बिल्कुल डर्ट रेसिंग करते हुए बिल्कुल ऐसे जंगलों के बीच में से जा रहे होते हो towards the very edge of Israel, which is a huge mountainscape. और इधर ना गोस्ट टाउन है सीरिया का एक, जहाँ पे लोग पहले रहते थे, अब नहीं रहते, अब सिर्फ मिलिट्री इनकैंपमेंट है. और तुम वो पता है ऑब्जर्व कहाँ से कर रहे हो? अंडरग्राउंड वो नहीं होते बंकर्स की खिड़कियों में से ऐसे देख रहे हो, वो रहा सीरिया, देखो ये लोग क्या करते हैं यहाँ पे, राइट. और तुम्हारे साथ जो लौंडे हैं ना जो तुम्हें लेके आए हैं, वो भाई उनमें से मैं 6'1" लंबा चौड़ा आदमी हूँ भाई. मैं उनके सामने ऐसा लग रहा था बच्चा. वो 6'5", उनके बाल भाई हरक्यूलिस वाले, कह रहे हैं बता दे क्या करना है. मैंने बोला भाई ये हैं, उनको कोई पैसे वैसे का मतलब नहीं. वो जहां रहते हैं ना, मैं जनवरी में था इजराइल, पर पूरा इजराइल मेडिटेरेनियन है. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 जनवरी में टेम्परेचर होगा, ठीक है. वो अकेली जगह थी जहाँ टेम्परेचर 2 डिग्री सेल्सियस था, क्योंकि तुम पूरा पहाड़ चढ़ चुके हो. वो वहां चिल मार रहे हैं भाई अपनी सर्दी में स्टड की तरह. मैंने बोला ये लोग बड़े इंप्रेसिव ब्रो, मेरे को बड़े कूल लगे वो लोग. तो फिर मैं उनके साथ थोड़ी देर हैंग आउट किया, फिर चला गया वहां से.
And these were Israelis, right? Yeah.
These were Israelis.
वहीं के नेटिव जो थे. हाँ, अच्छा.
हाँ, stud Israelis, full stud Israelis. I have pictures with them somewhere. I cannot finagle, but yeah. So I know how bad this is. In fact, one of my first questions in Israel, I was speaking to a Mossad negotiator who would negotiate with people they would catch. And he was like, Jews have suffered this, Jews have suffered that, Jews have suffered this, Jews. And I was like, I'm sorry, this is in front of a bunch of people. I'm like, I'm sorry, like the fact that I'm here tells you that I'm invested, right? But where do I read? You say all of this has happened to the Jews. Where do I read this? And his reaction was like, how can you? But eventually he settled down. Not his reaction, his partner's reaction was like, but he was like, I'll tell you where you can read this. And he gave me all the sources for it right there. And then I went and did some research on it and so on and so forth. But the point is that if you go into the detail of what has happened to the Semites, it's horrible. हमें सिर्फ हॉलोकास्ट पता है, वो भी ढंग से नहीं पता है हमें, क्योंकि हमें पता नहीं इंडिया में जूस होते कौन है. हंगेरियन पोग्राम उससे 50 साल पहले हुआ था, उससे पहले 50 साल पहले.
तो खैर लाइक अगर थोड़ा सा भी पढ़ो तो पता है, तो शुरू से एक जो परसिक्यूटेड कम्युनिटी है वो जूस ही है, लाइक
जूश है
भाई. उनका वो उनके जो कैरिकेचर्स बना कर उनको लाइक पूरी दुनिया में जो मखौल उड़ता था हमेशा से, तो जूस को ऐसे गोश्त से ऑलमोस्ट लंबी नाक करके वो हैट फीस सी पहना के लाइक सो दे हैव बीन रिडिक्यूल्ड और मॉक्ड और thrashed like forever. But I would even still say that some of the points that Kanye brought up in this debacle, where he's completely embarrassed himself in so many ways, are still worth considering. They're interesting. Music industry is a messed up place, bro. It's a messed up place. Messed up, heavy messed up place. But again वो attribution की बात है ना, लाइक तुम
to label that as Jewish is too much.
सारा प्रॉब्लम ही वो है. तुम उसने लेक्स फ्रीडमैन ने ये बोला ना, तो भाई इंडिविजुअल का नाम ले, लाइक टेक द नेम ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल. सो
I would upgrade that and say Lex should have said, तो तू इस जितने भी ये लोग हैं इनको एक ग्रुप एक क्लास बना दे, इनको मेरी क्लास से रिलेट मत कर. समझ रहा है, लाइक वो मेरी क्लास नहीं है.
even if there is similarity there, तो
but it is crazy. नहीं कर रहे क्योंकि वो Jewish हैं, वो इसलिए कर रहे हो सकते हैं क्योंकि वो एक जैसे हैं, बट वो Jewish हैं इसलिए नहीं कर रहे. That has nothing to do with that. That is
वहाँ ही messed up. And what about this, like एक और अभी मुझे I just wanted to talk about it कि ये जो what are your are you happy or not ये Elon Musk bought Twitter?
My frank opinion is that
I
actually did some recordings on this that I did not upload. So largely first, that what people don't understand is Twitter is more than a social media. Twitter is everything but social media. Twitter is the collective consciousness of human beings at this point. Twitter is also the largest experiment on free speech that we know. And I want to see the new experiments that are going to happen along free speech now. That I'm very interested in. Besides that, I have no like sort of opinion on this.
I think free speech
there is one more point. There is one more point I can flag, which is the symbolic victory Indians find when Indians succeed otherwise, and this is not without virtue. As an Indian in a land where there are very few Indians, watching an Indian succeed is quite inspiring. The example is brilliant. But मेरे को ना जैसे ऋषि सुनक वाला भी सीन हुआ ना, अरे यार, like I think if you cracked a joke about how the British Empire, the sun has forever set in the British Empire, it would have been a lot cooler than saying yeah India, because the guy has very little to do with India except his name. And so there is some like
मेरा तो देखो personally, to be honest, मेरी सारी thinking of good, bad or what I am excited about, it's almost it has zero to do with कि कौन मेरी आइडेंटिटी से मैच करता है. सीरियसली मेरे को वो फर्क नहीं पड़ता. मैं इंडिविजुअल को देखता हूँ, ये बंदा कैसा लग रहा है. लाइक अगर ये ऋषि सुनक की जगह कोई और होता, मेरा सेम रिएक्शन होता. और इलॉन मस्क अगर मान लो इंडियन भी होता ना, मेरा पड़ोसी भी होता ना, मेरा सेम रिएक्शन होता कि मेरा एक्साइटमेंट कम या ज़्यादा नहीं होता. ठीक है, मैं पर्सनली जानता हूँ तो तुम्हें लगता है कि चलो यार वो थोड़ा जानते हैं, बट मेरा जो व्यू है अबाउट द वर्ल्ड वो आइडेंटिटी से जीरो चेंज नहीं होता. सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई काइंड ऑफ हैव लर्न टू डिटैच माई सेल्फ विद इन माई थिंकिंग. तो और इलॉन मस्क का मेरा ये आई थिंक द थिंग दैट आई एम ऑल्सो सेकंड लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू इज कि एक तो कितने फॉलोअर्स कम करेगा वो जब बॉट्स खत्म करेगा कि हर लोगों के कितने फॉलोअर्स स्लैश होंगे. और लाइक वो क्लीन अप एक्चुअली बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि तब सच में पता चलेगा कि रियल लेवल ऑफ डिसएग्रीमेंट कितना है, कि भाई असल में कितने लोग डिसएग्री कर रहे हैं. अभी तो क्या होता है, डिसएग्रीमेंट बॉट से आ रहा है और तुम्हें पता नहीं कि ट्रेंड जो हो रहा है वो लोगों का ट्रेंड है कि बॉट्स का ट्रेंड है. तो ये दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई वांट टू नो कि दुनिया का रियल ट्रेंड अब सामने आए ना, कि जनता ये कह रही है. सो दैट्स समथिंग आई एम रियली लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू.
वेरी कूल.
अगर बॉट वाला सीन हो जाए ना तो
वेरी कूल.
तो आई थिंक वी हैव टू कम टू नाउ योर बुक एंड आई वांट टू नो अबाउट दिस आल्सो. सो मैंने कुछ चैप्टर्स देखे जो मुझे बड़े सही लगे. तो आई वांट टू आस्क
You have to give me. Sorry, you have to give me 1 sec. You have to give me 1 sec.
चलो.
Oh, sorry, sex बोल दिया मैंने.
दिस आई एम गोना कीप. ठीक है.
1 sec.
Sure.
मेरी टीम मीटिंग शुरू हो गई एक्चुअली. हाँ, प्लीज गो ऑन.
Okay, so yeah, I want to now know about your book. ठीक है. So I read a couple of chapters और इसमें एक चीज़ जो मुझे बड़ी सही लगी and I want you to elaborate. ये जो how to make friends वाला था. This is a topic that I've always been very interested in, right? कि I mean, how do you make it? How do you keep them? So उसमें ये था कि how to make friends and keep them, right? So in your experiences so far, tell me like if you could give me your like personal experiences a bit. What are your few insights on friendship? Ki like if somebody has to make new friends and keep them, what are the top qualities?
Like a little bit of it depends on context. You have to understand where are you and what is your age and such. Because when you are 21, it's easier to make friends than when you're 26. And when you're 16, it's easier to make friends when you're 21. And part of it is because vulnerability reduces over time. And vulnerability, it's there is something very interesting I saw along these lines yesterday. I was watching this TV show and there is this, the main character in the show is a fugitive. He's on the run and he's in a strange land and he's sitting with this woman that he kind of likes. He's talking to her and he's never mentioned to anybody his history because if he gets caught, he's going to go back to prison in his home country. Okay. So she says something about what is your history or what is your background. And there is a little bit of flirtiness that happens from there. And she's like, you don't have to tell me. He's like, but what if I want to? And then she's like, okay, tell me. But he's like, then you'll have to tell me yours. And she's like, okay. So he tells her his secrets. And he says, now you have the key to my life in your hand. Now we are friends. And that's what I mean with that chapter is I'm getting to something real about how to make friends is that you have to share.
You have to share.
You have to put yourself in a dangerous position. That is one of the least, that is one of the minimum things you can do to ensure friendship.
Open yourself
now,
up.
For instance, I'll give you an example about you and I. When we spoke previously, before this, we spoke a little bit about the controversy. Yeah. And I was very forthcoming about everything. In fact, even your concerns, I was like, tell me, what are your concerns? Immediately, what that signals to your brain is this man is willing to be honest and vulnerable. And that changes how you look at me. I'm no longer an other. You know you have access to the deeper parts of me. This is what friendship is.
That's a great way to frame it, actually. Ki, yeah, you... like the person opens up for you and you know what you're dealing with. There's a familiarity now and like the likelihood of getting shocks and likelihood of getting betrayed or like वो सब जो है unknown जो है वो थोड़ा कम हो गया है. So you just feel more comfortable there.
बिल्कुल. And so largely in the chapter I divide making friends into 3 parts, which is past sharing, present sharing, future sharing. Yeah. Right? If you look at it, honestly, all of that is just reality sharing. That division is purely for the sake of making it more readable. Roughly what you have to do, philosophically speaking, is be able to share. And share here is deeper than, I share love. No. This is a little bit deeper. So for instance, I'm in college and I'm in college in New York. All Indians and Pakistanis are so much easier to make friends with because I can go to them and be like, Papa मारते थे ना? And they're like, हाँ Papa मारते थे. अरे तू मैं भाई कोई दिक्कत नहीं. Right? या वो छोड़ो. मैं सिर्फ ये बोल दूं, बीप कर देना इसको एडिटर. मैं बहनचोद बोल दूं. वो समझता है ना, एक भरा हॉल है, क्लास चल रही है, ठीक है, मैं पीछे से कहता हूँ बहनचोद, और वो जितने भी इंडियन पाकिस्तानी मुड़ जाएंगे, बांग्लादेशी, नेपाली, श्रीलंका, सारे बोला immediately your friends because the context is shared. Okay, forget that. I meet somebody else here, right? Let's say I met Jonathan, is one of the guys from the Israeli delegate that I was mentioning, right? And I go to Jonathan and Jonathan and I, we talk about Israeli politics and I'm like, look, I don't know enough about Israel and Palestine to make up my mind. Jonathan's like, but do you agree that people should have free expression? Yeah, I agree people should have free expression. Yes, why not? I agree with that too. Okay, what can we do about free expression? We can probably go and start a community around it. And now you're beginning to become friends because you've shared something in your present. A value you find equal that you act upon. Okay, same with future. I talk to Asim. Asim is my partner in my company and so on. And I met Asim 5-6 years ago, maybe now. It's been the longest time. But halfway through our friendship, I was like, hey, do you want to do this together? We were friendly. We would talk once in a while over emails. But emails पे कितनी बात कर लेते हो तुम, है ना? And he's like, yeah, I see something there. At this point, Asim is like a brother to me. We are friends, or then colleagues, then partners, and so on and so forth. Right? And so, if you are able to share something that is deep and important and valuable to you with someone else, and they accept it, and they share something in return, you're friends.
You know, I'll actually quote my dad here. Although I think he has simplified it a little too much, but this actually very perfectly summarizes what you're saying. वो हमको सिखाते थे फ्रेंडशिप के बारे में. He's like कि if you can share अपने फ्रेंड के साथ if you can share 70%, then your friendship is 70%. अगर तुम 90% शेयर कर सकते हो तो तुम्हारी फ्रेंडशिप 90% है, और 100 कर लोगे तो तुम्हारी फ्रेंडशिप 100 पे पहुंच गई. सो उन्होंने उसको किया कि मैं जितना ओपनली, मैं कहता हूँ, मैं मेरा जो क्लोजेस्ट फ्रेंड है ना, मैं उसको कुछ भी बोल सकता हूँ, कुछ भी बता सकता हूँ, एंड आई नेवर हैव टू थिंक ट्वाइस. मतलब इंसान जो अपनी वाइफ को शायद ना बताए, वो कहता मैं अपने क्लोजेस्ट फ्रेंड को शायद बता सकूँ. तो वो फ्रेंडशिप को दैट्स हाउ ही समराइज्ड इट. आई एम लाइक
Very interesting.
दैट्स हाउ ही सेड कि वो जितना जाओगे क्लोज उतना हुआ था.
बट एक और चीज इंटरेस्टिंग ये है, जैसे तुम 70, 80, 90 बोलोगे भी ना, यू कैन काउंट द नंबर ऑफ पीपल यू डिस्कार्ड एट एवरी लेवल. लाइक 100 पे आके मेरे पास 5-6 लोग होंगे ऐसे जिनको मैं कुछ भी बोल सकता हूँ, आई बैठा ले. समझ रहा है?
अरे 5-6 तो बहुत होते हैं.
भाई 5-6 का रीजन ये है कि तुम एक छोटे शहर से हो ना, जहाँ पे क्लोज नेट कम्युनिटी हो, तो वो 5-6 रह जाते हैं.
हाँ.
मतलब 3 तो मैं आंखें बंद करके किसी भी वक्त फोन कर सकता हूँ कि भाई सुन ये होना है, और वो हो जाएगा. 2-3 जैसे विनम्र है, दोस्त कास्ट वाला, है ना? I have known him him I mentioned because people know him. There is other friends like that. But मेरे को सोचना भी नहीं है, bro. जब initially, in fact, even during the controversy, I got a call from Vinamra, early on, and he was like, "बता अब क्या करना है ये वो." He was asking me कि how are you going to look at this going forward? How are you going to move ahead? And I asked him. This is earlier. This is in August, before shit went berserk. I was like, तेरे को एक बार भी शक नहीं हुआ कि जो ये श्वेताब कह रहा है मैंने किया है कि नहीं? कह रहा मतलब ही नहीं है. And that's how you know कि ये दोस्त है एक्चुअली. और फिर वो अकेला नहीं था, और भी लोग थे जिनका ये वाला फोन आया कि हमें भाई मतलब ही नहीं है तूने ये किया है. एंड दैट इज हाउ यू नो कि ये.
और लेट्स से अगर हुआ भी होता ना, इवन देन लाइक जब फैक्ट दैट ही इज कॉलिंग यू एंड ही इज एबल टू, लेट्स से वो तुम्हें फोन करके गालियां भी दे कि प्रखर तू क्या कर रहा है, लेट्स से,
राइट,
इवन दैट्स व्हाट यू वांट फ्रॉम अ फ्रेंड, राइट? कि भाई तू गलत भी बोल दे तो, पर तू मेरी साइड है, खड़ा है, और तू मुझे फीडबैक भी दे रहा है, तो दैट्स फाइन कि भाई तू मेरी गालियां दे दे.
उस केस में प्रोबेबली नॉट, बिकॉज वहां पे लाइक अगर तेरा दोस्त है तो पहले पूछेगा ना,
पहले ऑफ कोर्स दैट्स व्हाट आई मीन. पहले अंडरस्टैंड, यू हैव टू फर्स्ट हियर एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स से पहले तो समझना ही पड़ेगा, उससे पहले तो फिर.
बट व्हाई आई एम गोइंग वन डिग्री इवन फर्दर एंड व्हाई आई एम यूजिंग दिस एग्जांपल इज टू इलस्ट्रेट दैट व्हेन एट अ सर्टेन पॉइंट इट फेल्ट लाइक द वर्ल्ड वाज स्टैंडिंग अगेंस्ट मी, दिस इज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन टू यू.
वैल्यू बहुत बढ़ गई होगी, राइट? कि द फैक्ट दैट कि उस समय लाइक द पीपल हु स्टैंड फॉर यू इन दैट मोमेंट, वो फिर पर्सनल लॉयल्टी एक अलग लेवल पे जाती है फिर उसमें.
लॉयल्टी की भी बात नहीं है, ब्रो. लाइक व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज दिस इज लाइक लुक एट दिस ऑन अ मिथोलॉजिकल लेवल. ठीक है, देयर इज गोइंग टू बी अ मोमेंट इन योर लाइफ व्हेन यू विल फेस योर ओन महाभारत. इफ यू थिंक दैट इज एक्सक्लूसिव टू प्रखर और एक्सक्लूसिव टू समबडी एल्स, नो. हमारे पब्लिकली होते हैं क्योंकि हम पब्लिक एंटिटीज हैं, हम पब्लिक एक्शन फिगर्स हैं. वी आर GI जो फॉर 18-year-olds. ठीक है, तो हमारे ये पब्लिक में होते हैं, तुम्हारे प्राइवेट में होंगे 100% होंगे. अवॉइड ही नहीं. अगर तुम एक्चुअली इफ यू आर ऑन अ मीनिंगफुल जर्नी, ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता ना हो. उस दिन ना तुम्हें पता लग जाएगा ट्रू टेस्ट ऑफ वो फ्रेंड क्या होता है. बिकॉज जिस आदमी को उस टाइम भी सवाल उठाने की जरूरत ना पड़े ना, वो दोस्त है भाई. वो तुम्हारे साथ इसलिए खड़ा है क्योंकि वो तुम्हारा है. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा उस चीज की फैक्चुअल एम्प्टी कर दे. हो सकता है मैंने किया, हो सकता है मैंने ना किया, सब कुछ एम्प्टी कर दे. बट द फैक्ट दैट I could have questioned his friendship. He could not have questioned his friendship for me. That is when you know you're like, I told him that minute, your lifetime. There is no way this ever goes. अब तो 10 साल भी हो गए हमारी दोस्ती को, but this is lifetime now. Nothing takes that away from us. तो ये, और it was not just him. There were a bunch of other folk too who just call me up and laugh. Be like, साले, like, you know. And I was like, तुम इतना light कैसे ले सकते हो? क्योंकि हमें पता है ना भाई, like, you know, we are with you on this. And it's incredible. It's a completely different universe when that happens. It's a completely different universe. The illustration can only occur when you've been through something that tough. भूल जाओ एक सेकंड के लिए मेरी कंट्रोवर्सी और तुम्हारा ओपिनियन उस कंट्रोवर्सी पे. सिर्फ इमेजिन करो एक्सट्रीमली टफ सिचुएशन जो सबके साथ आती है मीनिंगफुल रस्तों पे. तब तुम्हारे साथ कौन खड़ा है और वो क्या करेगा उस टाइम जब वो खड़ा है. मैं उस चीज की बात कर रहा हूँ. वो that is my large take on friends, bro. That is my large take on friends.
Yeah, of course. another like very important pillar of friendship, let's say, कि adverse times में, क्योंकि सिर्फ good times में तो of course तुम share कर रहे हो, मस्ती कर रहे हो, but adverse times का behavior obviously like it's a very big pillar of friendship, so for sure.
So and that'll only occur when you've actually shared.
They know you.
Like Vinamra could destroy me tomorrow with the kind of stuff he knows about me. I could destroy Vinamra tomorrow with the kind of stuff I know about him. But there is no way that ever goes anywhere.
Yeah.
वो हमने privately share किए हैं वो moments साथ में. Right? It's the same shit, you know, like any friendship that is meaningful involves a level of secret keeping. But now we are getting into sort of distributaries from my book. The book does not address this. The book addresses how to make friends. I'm talking about what good friends are made out of.
And another point like friendship के अलावा जो एक मुझे book में मेरे को personally है, which is what I want to know from you now, कि and because many people also struggle as you go forward, उसमें 2 section है, उनको शायद एक साथ you can probably address. You talked about networking and cold emailing, right? क्योंकि तुम professional life में meaningful connections बनाना चाहते हो, collaboration
For that you need my co-author, bro. He's the one who wrote those parts. मैं इसलिए उस पे मैं comment करके I don't want to take the stage away from him, and neither will I pretend to know as much as he does about those things.
So that actually gives us another reason to bring
do it again.
Yeah,
bro.
So actually, because I want to know about this also, and people also, because so many people struggle with this. क्योंकि professional life में to be able to make networks is like not only fun to do, but it's obviously like it helps you obviously. So ये एक बहुत अच्छा सही skill है. So I'll probably talk to him as well. तो आई गेस देखो मेरा तो मन 1 घंटा और बात करने का, बट प्रखर हैज टू गो गाइस, तो इसलिए
प्रखर हैव टू गो.
या
एंड लुक आई मीन वी कैन डू दिस अगेन. We can have another conversation that gets to meatier things than what we've gotten to today. It also kind of felt like a lot of stuff had to be gotten out of the way in this conversation for us to reach something substantial. And then there was, it's up to you completely. But if you want to reschedule, we'll do it on Thursday, or we'll do it on Saturday or Friday or whatever.
Yeah, done. Like I'm in from my side. Perfect. We'll do it.